Good morning. You're watching. I usually do the podcast, so I say you're listening to, but you're watching All You Need to Know on Bloomberg Quint Live, and I'm Alex Matthew. First, the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi makes a pitch to global investors at the Bloomberg Global Business Forum, says that corporate tax rate cuts are just one of the many reforms that his government will undertake to help improve investment climate. Donald Trump orders the release of a confidential transcript of his conversation with the Ukrainian president after Democrats seek to move impeachment proceedings against him. SEBI notifies changes made to the definition of foreign portfolio investors, narrowing it down to 2 from 3 categories. And Asian markets are trading with gains as trade tensions ease and despite the impeachment inquiry President Donald Trump faces. Let's talk about U.S. markets now. U.S. stocks climbed after President Trump voiced optimism about a trade deal with China, which overshadowed some of the worries about political uncertainty in Washington. Trump told reporters that a deal with Beijing could happen sooner than you think. Renita Young of Bloomberg News gets you the highlights.
U.S. markets ended higher on Wednesday with the S&P 500 snapping a 3-day slide, all happening as investors digest the latest implications of drama in Washington surrounding a possible impeachment process, as well as headlines about trade that signaled some more positivity in markets as equities rose. Now, here in New York, the UN General Assembly meets this week, and today on Wednesday at the Bloomberg Global Business Forum, there were several headlines that came out of that. The U.S. dollar rose versus major currency competitors, and the Bloomberg Dollar Index was also up. Treasury yields turned higher as well, but WTI and gold both sunk a little bit. Gold was down more than 1%, signaling some progress or positivity surrounding trade relations. Meanwhile, we did see quite a bit of companies news coming in. Philip Morris and Altria Group stopping their merger talks, with Philip Morris among the best performers in the S&P 500 on Wednesday, and Nike Inc. rising to a record after strong results. So the next earnings that'll come will be Conagra Brands and Rite Aid. And that's a look at your Wednesday Wall Street action. In New York, I'm Renita Young for Bloomberg News.
All right, let's also take a look at the Asian markets. I'm joined live by Rosalind Chin, who's joining us from the Bloomberg studios in Hong Kong. Good morning, Rosalind. What's the field today, and are you seeing any trends that can be looked at across the region?
Certainly, I think the general feeling across the region which may be driving sentiment is optimism over trade. Now, these, of course, are little incremental steps that are being taken, but right now I think trade optimism is overtaking concerns about what's going on in the U.S. regarding impeachment proceedings going on there. So largely, broadly speaking, we're seeing a lot of green across the board. The MSCI Asia Pacific Index is making gains of 0.4% right now. Of course, Japan is making gains. The Nikkei is up by nearly 0.5%. The Topix making gains of nearly 0.75%. Stocks like automakers doing particularly well there, and that, of course, is after President Trump and Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, signed what they called the first stage of an initial deal that eases access for about $7.2 billion in U.S. agricultural goods, but also means that the U.S. will not impose any tariffs on Japanese autos going into the U.S. And this last point has been a real sticking point in these trade negotiations that have been ongoing for at least a year now. Now, these deals are expected to be implemented by January the 1st, 2020. That's according to a U.S. senior administration official. So that is, of course, helping the Japanese markets there. The Topix actually set for its best monthly performance now since October 2015. For the month of September, it is up at least 9%. Now, just one day after hitting out at China for its trade practices, Trump, again at the UN General Assembly, suggested a trade deal is getting closer and closer, and there is a good chance a deal can be reached, again helping the boost sentiment a little bit there. The Chinese markets open high. The Shanghai Composite is up by 0.4%, CSI 300 up by almost but the same amount. We did, however, get some not great news on Hong Kong in the sense of its Golden Week coming up. So we are seeing some volume start to ease off a little bit in China because they have a week off next week. In Hong Kong, we normally see an influx, a huge influx of travellers coming in from China. It's in fact the biggest source of tourist traffic coming from China into Hong Kong over Golden Week. But because of these ongoing protests now going into 17th week here in Hong Kong, a lot of people are staying away The Hong Kong Travel Industry Council saying that Chinese group tours to Hong Kong are set to plunge 86% for Golden Week as concerns linger about the impact of those protests on travellers coming in from mainland China. However, of course, that isn't affecting the Hang Seng Index too much right now. That is making gains of about 0.25%. Lastly, Australia, that is in fact one of the markets which is dipping into negative territory today. The S&P ASX 200 down by 0.16% right now. Largely, broadly speaking, we're seeing that financials and material stocks are not faring particularly well at this point in the session. Back to you.
Thanks so much for that, Rosalind. Now, Prime Minister Modi used the Bloomberg Global Business Forum to make a strong pitch to foreign investors, calling them to come to invest in India. Speaking to Bloomberg founder Michael Bloomberg, he also reiterated that the corporate tax rate cut that was done on Friday is just one of many reforms that the government will continue to undertake in India.
आज भारत में एक ऐसी सरकार है जो बिजनेस वर्ल्ड का सम्मान करती है, वेल्थ क्रिएशन का सम्मान करती है। साथियों, आपकी जानकारी में होगा कि अभी कुछ दिन पहले ही हमने कॉरपोरेट टैक्स में भारी कमी करने का फैसला लिया है। ये निवेश के स्तर से बहुत क्रांतिकारी कदम है और इस फैसले के बाद मेरी बिजनेस वर्ल्ड में के जितने भी लोगों से बात हुई, जिनसे भी मुलाकात हुई, वो इसे बहुत ही ऐतिहासिक कदम मानते हैं। आज इस मंच से मैं कहना चाहता हूं कि ये तो अभी शुरुआत है, अभी लंबा समय आगे बाकी है। इस सफर में भारत के साथ पार्टनरशिप करने के लिए ये पूरे विश्व के बिजनेस वर्ल्ड के लिए सुनहरा मौका है, गोल्डन अपॉर्चुनिटी है। फ्रेंड्स, टुडे इंडिया is in a unique position where our rapid growth enables us to cater to diverse demand. Our people are rapidly defeating poverty, moving up the economic ladder with increasing purchasing power. Thus, if you want to invest in a market where there is a scale, come to India. Our middle class is a huge segment of people who are aspirational and has a global outlook. Thus, if you want to invest in a market where the latest trend and futures are appreciated, come to India. Our youth are one of the largest users of the app economy. From food to transport and from movies to hyper-local delivery, startups are acing everything. Thus, if you want to invest in startups with a huge market, come to India. Our infrastructure creation is expanding at a fast pace, from highways to metros, from railways to ports, from airports to logistics. Each sector is seeing massive investment and tremendous potential. Thus, if you want to invest in one of the world's largest infrastructure ecosystem, come to India. We are rapidly modernizing our cities and equipping them with latest technology and citizen-friendly infrastructure. Thus, if you want to invest in urbanization, come to India. We have opened our defense sector like never before. If you want to make in India, for India, and for the world, come to India. We are building tens of millions of homes for the poor and middle classes. This is perhaps the largest housing efforts in the world. Thus, to invest in reality, come to India. साथियों, भारत में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के विकास पर आज जितना हमारी सरकार निवेश कर रही है, उतना पहले कभी नहीं किया गया। अब हम आने वाले वर्षों में 100 लाख करोड़ यानी लगभग $1.3 ट्रिलियन आधुनिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर खर्च करने जा रहे हैं। इसके अलावा भारत के सोशल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर भी लाखों करोड़ रुपए खर्च किए जा रहे हैं। भारत की ग्रोथ स्टोरी में क्वालिटेटिव और क्वांटिटेटिव लीप का रोडमैप जमीन पर उतर चुका है। अब भारत ने एक बड़ा लक्ष्य रखा है, देश को $5 ट्रिलियन की इकोनॉमी बनाने का। फ्रेंड्स, इस बड़े टारगेट को अचीव करने के लिए हमारे पास कैपेबिलिटी भी है, करेज भी है और कंडीशंस भी हमारे साथ है। आज भारत की ग्रोथ स्टोरी के 4 अहम फैक्टर हैं जो एक साथ दुनिया में मिलने वाली शायद ये रेयरेस्ट ऑफ द रेयर कॉम्बिनेशन है। ये 4 फैक्टर हैं: डेमोक्रेसी, डेमोग्राफी, डिमांड एंड decisiveness.
Right, there was a lot more from that conference, and in fact you'll be able to find it on the website. Meanwhile, let's move to another story in the United States. President Donald Trump is now faced with the threat of impeachment after reports suggested that he pressured Ukraine president to investigate his political rival in the 2020 election, Joe Biden. But he continues to defend his call with the Ukraine president, saying that there was no pressure whatsoever for Ukraine to act. Jody Schneider of Bloomberg News gets you the details of the transcript of that now infamous call, which was released by the White House last night.
Well, it shows that he clearly was talking to the Ukrainian president about investigating Joe Biden, who is, of course, is a rival for 2020 presidential race, and trying to tie Mr. Biden and his son to alleged corruption in Ukraine. He basically said in the call that he wanted them to be investigated. Vice President Biden, former Vice President Biden, had his allegation was that he had been ousted or sought to oust a top prosecutor in Ukraine because this prosecutor that basically trying to tie him to some kind of corruption involving Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, who was on the board of an oil company. Those allegations have proven to be false. They were shown to be that in Ukrainian documents. However, the question now on this call is whether he explicitly sought to tie that request for an investigation to aid to Ukraine or to stopping aid to Ukraine. The president says that this call shows that he didn't do that it wasn't connected. The Ukrainian president says that, but plenty of others, including, of course, House Democrats, are saying this shows that the president tried to use his influence as president to get a country that is dependent on U.S. aid to investigate a rival.
Okay, so how are Republicans reacting then?
Well, some, of course, are continuing to stand by the president. However, some Republicans in the Senate, including a former Republican presidential nominee, Mitt Romney of Utah, are saying that they're very concerned about this. Mitt Romney is saying he's deeply troubled by this. And the question is, what will they do in terms of investigations? The House is going to continue. The House, we can presume, will double down on its investigations and looking to this impeachment inquiry. However, the Senate, which would have to vote on any impeachment, which is, of course, Republican-controlled and is unlikely to do that, the question is, do they try to do other investigations? Because, of course, this has political implications for those running in 2020, those running in House races, those running in Senate races.
Now, aside from impeachment worries, President Trump also has his eyes on trade negotiations with China. He says that a deal between the two countries can happen sooner than you think. Listen in.
And right now, China is way behind us, and they'll never catch us if we have smart leadership, way behind. We've picked up trillions of dollars, and they've lost trillions of dollars. And they want to make a deal very badly. And it could happen. Could happen. It could happen. It could happen sooner than you think.
What does that sooner than you think mean? Well, Tom McKenzie of Bloomberg News is bringing you more details on this.
Well, it's not clear that President Trump even himself knows what he wants to do in terms of the trade deal with China, because he's caught, of course, between two competing pressures. One is to be able to present to his voters in 2020 a deal, a complete deal, as he's described it, with China. The other, of course, is the acknowledgement that farmers are under pressure, China, US corporates are under pressure. The broader economy is now potentially starting to feel the pain of this trade war as it becomes more prolonged. So he has to address that. Of course, he does have the meetings coming up between the two sides in and around October the 10th, which he's looking ahead to. So some of this may just be gamesmanship. But yes, his comments after giving, by the way, China something of a tongue lashing the day before at the United Nations, his comments most recently saying he thinks there could be a deal and it could come sooner than we expect. So again, of course, we're all focused on that meeting between the two sides in Washington around October 10th.
All right, let's see what else is making headlines across the globe. Sue Keenan of Bloomberg News brings you the first word headlines.
The U.S. and Japan, who have agreed to a limited trade agreement, this after Washington withdrew the threat of imminent tariffs on auto shipments. President Trump and Shinzo Abe signed the first stage of a pact after meeting at the UN General Assembly. You can see the big smiles there. The U.S. Trade Representative's office described it as covering early achievements, while the president said he expects a comprehensive deal in the near future.
The U.S. and Japan are not only longtime allies, but also the world's biggest and third biggest economies. The trade deal between the two countries is quite significant, as it not only contributes to our countries, but also to the global economy.
Not a lot of smiles, meanwhile, in the noisy House of Commons. That's where UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson returned, refusing to quit or apologize for his unlawful suspension of Parliament. He challenged his opponents to trigger a snap election, saying the Supreme Court judges who criticized him were simply wrong. Britain, as you may know, is due to leave the EU on October 31st, and Johnson says it will happen with or without an agreement to soften the blow.
It's time for this Parliament, finally, to take responsibility for its decisions. We decided to call that referendum. We promised time and again to respect it. I think the people of this country have had enough of it. This Parliament must either stand aside and let this government get Brexit done, or bring a vote of confidence and finally face the day of reckoning with the voters.
Moving on to the IMF, it has confirmed Bulgarian economist Kristalina Georgieva as managing director, continuing the tradition of a European in that role. Now, the former World Bank chief executive, as you may know, starts on October 1st, succeeding Christine Lagarde, who's off to the ECB. Georgieva is the first IMF leader to come from an emerging market. She said warning signs are flashing and global growth continues to disappoint. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Sue Keenan. This is Bloomberg.
All right, let's turn to the Indian markets now. Agam Vakil is here to tell you all about the day's trade and what's happening in the futures and options space. Agam, a bit of a cool-off yesterday, extension of the trend of the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Today's expiry. How are we looking today?
Looking at that wobbly, honestly, Alex, because that weakness that we saw yesterday did change some things as far as the indices are concerned. However, for now, the SGX Nifty is indicating a positive start. Let's wait and watch. Things may or may not change in the next 1 hour of trade. But as I was saying, well, we saw 1.5% cut on the indices, a little sharper cut as far as the mid-cap and small cap indices go. The banking indices, of course, saw a substantial weakness, specifically the PSU banking index, because that was largely on account of weakness that we saw in State Bank of India. But at this point in time, ADRs are looking at some amount of weakness. Tata Motors, of course, in this case stands out. That's down around 2.7%. But, as far as a handful of other stocks go, there you have it, it's marginal gains coming in. For fund flows, FIs have sold another 342 odd crores from Indian equity markets on a net basis. On the other hand, DIs this time also selling. So there is a little bit of pressure on account of institutional selling coming through as far as Indian markets go. Moving on, let's also talk about your contributors. So we have the likes of TCS, Power Grid, and NTPC. Well, trying to keep the indices there, but we don't have too much in terms of those, considering we have heavyweights like HDFC, SBI, ITC, HDFC Bank, all declining and weighing down on the index. Coming down to your futures and options space, and it is the monthly expiry. Though a lot of things have changed, rollovers are currently at around 57%, largely on average lines. The same for the Nifty banking futures at around 42%. This could see a little more of a pickup. The only reason why rollovers are not that certain is because of the extreme volatility that the bank Nifty has seen. Of course, we're keeping an eye on 11,500, considering we are exactly there, and that is where we've seen most amount of activity as well. Yesterday, as you can see, we saw unwinding in the 11,500 puts and a little more writing around the 11,500 call. Moving on, let's talk about the VIX that's come off surprisingly, despite the fact that the Nifty also has moved downwards. It's down around 3.4%. This may actually mean that we could see a phase of consolidation, given we are not expecting too much in terms of movement. Let's keep an eye on that one, and of course. The Nifty put call ratio on expected lines has come off to around 1.27. Moving on, in terms of stocks, we're going to see unwinding. But in terms of the most active, we saw some weakness in Bosch, Shree Cement, and Grasim. So watch out for that, as along with Indiabulls Housing Finance as well. And of course, on the gaining end, we have Power Grid. Mixed cues, Alex. And if I were to go only by the indications of the India Volatility Index, we're likely to see a day of consolidation today.
Thanks so much for that, Akam. All right, on to another exclusive. Mahindra Group Chairman Anand Mahindra says that the trade war between the US and China is a situation of enormous opportunity for India. Speaking at the Bloomberg Global Business Forum, Mahindra said that India needs to play its cards smartly now that President Trump too has made his intentions clear on trade with India. Listen in.
Now, you sit in a very interesting place, figuratively and literally, between China and the United States. How do you see it?
I see it as a situation of enormous opportunity. I have to be mercenary about that.
Wait, you mean the spat you do?
Of course, absolutely, because and I'm just being truthful here, that for a long time it wasn't kosher for anyone in American policy positions to admit that there was a kind of conflict with China, and that India, in fact, could be one of the players in this game as a buffer against China. That was just a no-no. If you went to the Council on Foreign Relations, nobody would admit that. I think now it's in the open. And I think President Trump has even made it more in the open. I mean, going to Houston and listening to our Prime Minister, I think he made it very clear what kind of alliance he had. I think there's nothing but opportunity for India in this. And we have to play our cards right and see that we are viewed now as a very, very appropriate ally for the U.S., as a buffer both in defense terms, frankly. If you look at the number of defense exercises between the U.S. and India, they're proliferating dramatically. Defense procurement from India is already burgeoning. We never used to buy. We used to buy more from the Russians. And frankly, all the tenor of the relationship with India is right. This is a democratic country. It's a country that values IPR. This is a country that has scale and growth, so there is profit for global companies too over there. So I think India has nothing but a unique opportunity right now, and we have to just play those cards right. And I think it will be a win-win for both the US and for India.
The government has reconstituted the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. The officials have been appointed for a 2-year term. And while the chairman and the secretary member remain the same, the number of part-time members have been reduced from 6 to 4. Nikunj Ori has the details.
The government has reconstituted Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council for a period of 2 years with effect from September 26, 2019. Mr. Bibek Debroy continues to be chairman of the PMESC, and Ratan Batal, who is the current advisor at Niti Aayog, continues to be the member secretary of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. The number of part-time members have been cut to 2 from 4 members earlier, and Mr. Ratan Roy and Shamika Ravi have been dropped as the part-time members of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. Ashima Goel continues to be a part-time member of the PMESC, and there's been a new member inducted into the panel, Mr. Sajid Chinoy, who is the current Chief India Economist at JP Morgan.
All right, I'm joined by Somit Sarkar now, who's got all the stocks that you have to watch out for in trade today. Somit, it could just be a volatile session, but what are the key stocks on your list today?
Well, firstly, let's start off with Sterlite Tech. Now, they announced an acquisition yesterday. Now, they will acquire 100% stake in Impact Data Solutions for an enterprise value of £12 million, that is close to 106 crore rupees. Now, the company has currently acquired only 80% stake, and the remaining 20% will be acquired over the next few years. And in the conference call, the company did say that that Impact Data Solutions is a debt-free company, and the target company has an EBITDA margin of nearly 20%, and the deal will be EPS accretive right from the very first day. And the targeted revenue for calendar year 2019 for Impact Data Solution is expected to be in the range of around 10 to 12 million pounds. The second one is on GSK Pharma, where the company has released a statement saying that they have suspended the release, distribution and supply of all dose forms of ranitidine hydrochloride products to all markets. Thirdly, CG Power. Now, the board has appointed Ashish Goha as the chairman of the company, and they will be considering the first quarter and the second quarter results on or before November 11th. Cipla would also remain in focus because they have announced the launch of daptomycin for injection for the US market. Now, according to IMS, the product has a market size of close to $600 million. Indiabulls are listed because they have concluded the stake sale in the joint ventures to Blackstone Group for close to 2,700 crore rupees, while Axis Bank, because they have issued close to 20 crore shares at 629 rupees, raising close to 12,500 crore rupees. Now, the shares are issued at a 5% discount to the floor price that was announced earlier at close to 661 rupees. Lastly, Varun Beverages would again remain in focus because the promoter RJ Corp has sold nearly 27 lakh shares, that is 1.5% stake in the company yesterday.
Thanks so much for that, Somit. Now, the festive season is fast approaching, which means online portals like Amazon and Flipkart are getting ready to grab your attention with discounts. The efforts are essentially to garner a bigger share of the $4.8 billion pie. Nishant Sharma gets you the details.
Well, it's really that time of the year when the e-commerce companies in the country go all out in order to lure customers to come on their platform and shop, and really focusing on the first-time customers to really come on their platform and start their e-commerce journey. Now, before we go into what the big boys of e-commerce companies, Amazon and Flipkart, are really doing to lure customers on the platform, the big theme where all the e-commerce companies are focusing at this year's a big sale event is that all the companies are eyeing for the next 100 million customers coming from smaller tier 2 and tier 3 towns. Now, if you look at Flipkart now, in the run-up to the festive sales season, now Flipkart, did announce a launch of its Hindi interface to lure and make it easier for the customers to shop on the platform. It is also banking on a star power of something like Mahindra Singh Dhoni, Amitabh Bachchan, even Alia Bhatt, to really expand its reach and connect better with the masses. And as far as the discounts are concerned, Flipkart has really, is offering debit and easy debit and credit facilities. It tied up with Axis Bank, ICICI Bank, to name a few. And as for the discounts are concerned, discounts really in the range of close to as low as 40% and as high as 90%. To give a sense of how big the discounts at this year's sales season is, if you are looking to purchase, for example, Samsung S9 Galaxy 4, Flipkart is offering a discount of close to about 24,000 or about 35,000 rupees, and you can purchase a 70,000 smartphone about close to about 35,000 only if you're looking to buy an laptop, Acer's laptop. Flipkart is again offering a discount of close to about 24,000 rupees. Now, coming to Amazon, Amazon has really taken the focus towards connecting and reaching out to people from the smaller town to one level further. They have launched trucks which are traveling. They're going to travel about 13 cities in the countries, traveling about 6,000 kilometers. And once these trucks are assembled, they convert into a mini 1,000 square feet house, small mini house, encompassing products, about 600 products, in order to give really a touch and feel concept, and really focusing on people from smaller towns to make it easier and convincing for them to come on the platform and shop, and to really understand why Amazon has launched this truck. And I spoke to Manish Tiwari, who is the vice president at Amazon, and this is what he has to say.
It's 6 years since we've been in India, and over the last few years we find more and more of our customers and sellers coming from smaller cities. So more than 70% of our customers come from tier 2, tier 3 cities, even prime customers for that matter. And more of our sellers, more than half of them come from the smaller cities. I mean, you just heard about the Tribes India, the department secretary talking about it. They come from the really interiors of places like Bastar and Mayurbhanj. So this was a way of taking the Amazon home to our customers and sellers. So normally we would have done it in a bigger city, but this year we said, let our customers and sellers feel what Amazon is all about, what do we sell. And more importantly, at the back of these trucks are seller stories, sellers who've been very successful. So this is Amazon India going to Bharat, and we're going to go to, starting from Delhi, we go to Lucknow, Ahmedabad, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and smaller cities like Madurai, Cochin. So we are very excited about it. It's a way to connect with our sellers and customers.
Well, as far as Amazon is concerned, while the festive sale is starting a day earlier, especially for the Prime members on September 28 as against September 29, the discounts and the offers are also on the same line what Flipkart is offering. Amazon is also, is tied up with banks to make it easier, debit and credit facilities for the customers to shop and on the platform and, get extra discounts. And also, they're banking on new launches for TV, mobile phones, to make it more interesting for the customers to shop on the platform. And also discounts are almost in the range of, as low as 40%, is going as high as 90% on Amazon's platform as well. But to really, to understand why really the fuss about the e-commerce festive sale and why these sales are really important for these e-commerce companies, to give you a perspective, these month-long Diwali sales really account for 1/3 of the overall annual sales these e-commerce companies do annually. And the stakes are also getting higher with every year's Diwali or festive sales season. This year, according to Forrester research, these e-commerce companies are expected to do a gross sale of about close to $5 billion in the month-long Diwali sales season. And about close to 80% of that will be coming alone from the 6-day sale events, that is September 29th to October 4th. About close to $3.8 billion will be generated in terms of sale in this 6-long sale event.
Well, those are the days that you have to watch out for when you plan your purchases. Let's turn to some other news. Teenage climate change activist Greta Thunberg is one of 4 winners of the Right Livelihood Award, which is also known as the Alternative Nobel. The award comes days after she addressed world leaders at the UN Climate Action Summit. Take a look.
Climate activist Greta Thunberg from Sweden is recognized by the jury for inspiring and amplifying political demands for urgent climate action, reflecting scientific facts. Thunberg is the powerful voice of a young generation that will have to bear the consequences of today's political failure to stop climate change. Her resolve to not put up with the looming climate disaster has inspired millions of people to also raise their voices and demand immediate climate action. With her outstanding moral clarity, personal integrity and scientific understanding, Greta Thunberg has reconnected the political debate about climate change with relevant facts and priorities. With this award, we honor one of the most effective civil society leaders of our time and celebrate the power of every human being to make a difference.
You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
All right, let's take you through some of the stories you'll find on the website bloombergquint.com. First up, SEBI has notified new rules categorizing foreign portfolio investors into 2 buckets as opposed to 3, besides easing norms for investment in offshore derivative instruments. To invest in Indian markets, FPIs need to register with the Securities and Exchange Board of India and were divided into 3 categories based on their risk profile and the consequent KYC or Know Your Customer requirements. To read what they are on the story on the website. And the National Company Law Tribunal has directed financial creditors of the grounded Jet Airways to release some interim lifeline funds within 15 days. The lenders had in principle sanctioned 63 crore rupees to the resolution professional, and State Bank of India, the lead lender, had reportedly already disbursed its portion of 10 crore rupees. That's all you need to know going to trade today. Do stay tuned. There's a lot more coming up in just a short while. This is Bloomberg Quint.